which is from James Tollitt, one of my colleagues at Salford Royal, and Rob Chan will be kindly doing his talk after the coffee break. So over to you, James.
So, can you hear me?
Yes.
There we go. Sorry. So yeah, thank you very much. I'm very honoured to be asked to present this piece of work, which really I've entitled "Lessons Learned." And I'm conscious that I might be telling my grandmother to suck eggs, and it's not meant as a teaching or an education sort of piece, but more sort of a way of sort of describing what lessons we've learned on our experience of Transplant First in Salford. Just to give you background, that Salford is the hub to a diverse population of 1.5 million patients. We have about 500 to 550 dialysis patients, but we are not a transplanting centre. And our centre is for transplants is 9 miles across the city of Manchester, Central Manchester Foundation Trust. And I'm presenting this as a story of our Transplant First journey, which I think started back in 2012 as some initial audits and projects and things, and really sort of gathered pace in around 2017, which was led by Dr. Rosie Dunn. And then post-COVID, I took up the chalice and have led this the Transplant First projects in Salford. I just want to talk a little bit about what our success has been really, and then how we got there. So the first thing is that we have developed a driver diagram, and when you're thinking of QI projects, you can't put enough more, you can't put too much focus on this. There's the original aim back in 2021 is that we would increase our number of preemptive transplants to 20%, had a 20% increase in the number of preemptive transplants. And one of the major drivers of trying to achieve this goal is that we set up a transplant workup one-stop clinic for potential recipients. And one of the real lessons that we learned is the presence of a cardiologist within that service. We have a hugely good and tight relationship with our cardiology colleagues in our centre, and they've done huge amount of work and help us to achieve the goals with Transplant First. So a thanks to them. There's also just a further point on driver diagrams is that you can never have too many. So every iteration of our Transplant First program, we've redone a new driver diagram to try and keep things fresh and try and keep a level of energy within the service, within the group. What did we do? So by 2019, we showed an 80% increase in the number of patients who had a live kidney transplant. And obviously, we've seen in many other presentations the drop-off that was seen after this stage due to the COVID-19 pandemic. And we also saw evidence that our process was working because there was a 70% increase in the number of patients who were entering the transplant waiting list over a 12-month period. So that was the sort of the setting that I took on, and it was quite a burden really to acknowledge what a hugely successful program this had been up until the COVID pandemic pulled the rug from under our feet. And then to use a phrase that I think had been coined by a few others called build back better. So this is sort of from 2021, 2022 onwards. And we decided to create an aim which was looking at can we achieve 25 live donations in the year 2023. And as of yesterday, we are on track and we have 3 more planned before the end of the year. So assuming they all go to plan, we will achieve our aim for 2023, and there'll be 25 patients who've undergone a live donation. And this also shows what a hugely successful year 2019 was in terms of number of live donations. But it does give you an idea of why we chose 25. There was, I think, 18 transplants in the year of 2022. So this definitely does show improvement since the COVID-19 pandemic. But the caveat is that we are still not quite up to where 2019 was. So there's still plenty of work for us to do. So the first lesson that I've learned through this process is that you can't have a project if there's not a good number of you all that share the same passion goals, and make sure that your team is from all areas of your service. Particularly highlighting Zoe there in the first one on the top sort of left picture. I mean, she's our transplant workup coordinator. And she is immeasurably valuable at moving patients through the pathway as quickly as possible. But obviously, there's the whole MDT and more that have supported us. Lesson 2 that I've come to learn is make sure that the aim is easily measurable, and it also offers a direct measure of improvement. So going back to 2018, the aim was a 20% increase in the preemptive transplantation rate. And then in 2021, we chose to target 20% of patients starting dialysis will be via a preemptive transplant by the end of December 2023. But there's a few issues with this as a metric, which I want to explain. First of all, there's huge amounts of variation month to month and quarter to quarter about how many patients start dialysis. I thought this would be fairly stable, but some quarters there's 25 patients starting dialysis treatment, and there's other quarters there's 50, and that huge variability does make a huge impact onto your preemptive transplantation rate, which is fairly stable. The other thing is our denominator, which is the total number of dialysis starts in our centre, does rely upon accurate data from our Trust IT man or woman. In our case, it was a man, and he wasn't necessarily in the group, and he kind of was employed relatively recently, so didn't really understand the importance of timely getting that data across to us in a timely way, and it wasn't data that we could easily find ourselves in any other way. And the other issue that we had is that the number of dialysis starts has actually increased. So our number of patients on renal replacement therapy, so dialysis and peritoneal dialysis, has gone from about 470 to 550 over the last year or so. So there's more patients starting dialysis, and so any improvement in your preemptive transplantation rate might be masked by the fact that more patients are reaching dialysis, and because of the COVID-19 pandemic, we're noting a lot of coming to us in a relatively unplanned and rushed way. So in 2022, or the end of 2022, we decided our aim for 23 was just to target absolute numbers of preemptive transplants and live donations. The third lesson is trying to choose the low-hanging fruit first, and don't be, as I mentioned before, don't be afraid to create another diagram. And KQIP did introduce the concept to us about the 30, 60, 90 plan. The ones I've highlighted in green there are the ones that we thought were kind of easier to target, and there was other sort of change ideas really, which required business cases and more money, which obviously were a bit more difficult to achieve. And again, these are all our sort of our driver diagrams, and this diagram just shows the ticks and the crosses of what we did achieve and what we didn't achieve. Business cases we didn't achieve, but things like setting up monthly MDTs between the transplant centre and our specialist nurses to find where people are falling down and making sure people are moving through the pathway, that was relatively easy to set up and has worked well. The second low-hanging fruit was something that was within our control. We developed new patient information leaflets, and one of the key issues in our population is there's a huge, relatively huge ethnic diversity amongst our patients. So we were keen that we addressed living kidney donation in different languages, and Bengali and Urdu patient information leaflets about living kidney transplant is given to all patients who are suitable for a kidney transplant on their first presentation to the Advanced Kidney Care Clinic, and sometimes even before. This, although seems quite low-hanging, I'd say was middle of the tree in a way, because it turned out it was quite difficult to translate some of what we were trying to explain in English into Urdu for reasons I still don't understand. But I'm grateful to our team in the trust that have helped us do that. And then second thing is invest in your live donor team. We know we can't achieve preemptive transplantation without the support of live donation. And although the COVID-19 pandemic has certainly contributed to why the numbers of living kidney donor transplants went down during 2020 and 2021, so did the number of our kidney live donor nurses. And I'm really pleased that towards the end of 2022, we got our second kidney transplant live donor nurse back in the department. And the importance of that is reflected in this data, showing that the number of patients, so the number of new referrals and the number of individual recipients who having at least one donor come forward is rising year on year. And this difference between 2022 and 2023, and we're not even finished 23 yet, is quite remarkable. We've gone from 72 to 102 potential live donor recipients in 12 months. So I think there are some signs that our project is working and may continue to bear fruit next year. Finally, penultimately, I think we also need to recognise it's a process of continuous improvement, and we can't rest on our laurels. Not everything is going to plan, and we are behind track with our trying to target 25 preemptive kidney transplants in a calendar year. So I'm grateful to this meeting, really, because it's given me some ideas about what else we can do and how we can try and achieve and move that forward for next year. Finally, I think data. I've shown you lots of graphs on this slide deck, but we have to recognise that without data, we don't have a project, really. We are seeing an increase in the number of patients entering the list. So I showed you initially the data up to 2019 when it was 158, and that was the best year for everything in the project. And we're on track to surpass that because this data is up to the end of October. So we've got another couple of months, and we probably will surpass the number of patients who entered the kidney transplant waiting list as either active or suspended in 2023. And also, we have to caveat everything that we do is that it's not an easy project to work through. This was analysis of 4 or 5 years of patients who attended our transplant workup clinic, and there's a lot of patients that go through that clinic. There's a lot of work that's done for the patients and by our teams, but yet only 13% of them undergo preemptive transplantation, which goes to show the importance of live donation when we're working towards transplant first. I'm conscious that I might be running over time, so just want to make sure the final lesson was that we need to celebrate success when it happens, and this is the registry data showing that Salford are in the top sort of 5 to 10% of trusts when it comes to living kidney donation and being activated on the kidney transplant waiting list. And I'll just thanks to all the team, especially the cardiology team, and just a summary of what we said, and grateful again to ask to speak today.
Thanks so much, James. All that work is very close to home for me. It's great to see that you're continuing to make fantastic strides. So I think we've probably got about 5 minutes for questions because I don't want to delay the coffee break.